I'm CraigO, and join me on my adventures with CraigO's cryptocurrency as we cover the blockchain, Web3, NFT, and cryptocurrency technologies. Interviewing the best in the industry, giving tips and tricks, and also sharing with you projects that I'm most excited about.
You're tuning into CraigO's Crypto Corner, the best in Web3, blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrency technology. Great reviews, incredible interviews with the leading people in the Web3 ethos, and just the general things Web3. Now, today we are going live on Twitter Spaces. We are also on YouTube. We are streaming there, and really excited to get into it. So I have said from day one, the thing I am most excited by when it comes to actual products and services is to connect directly with Web3 communities. Today's guest has created a product that serves a purpose to protect our hot and cold wallets, private keys, and seed phrases all in one place. Shieldfolio is the go-to in making sure you never lose the most valuable information to access your digital assets and cryptocurrency. Today, for two lucky listeners, I'm going to be giving away 2 Shieldfolio books, 2 ghost pens at random. I'm going to pick based on engagement or just pure luck or whoever I feel like giving them to. Freddy Hernandez was in the food industry tied to the corporate life in 2017, and shortly thereafter, he developed a bread delivery route to satisfy his entrepreneurial appetite. This just stoked his fire, being a fully independent contractor, and like me, caught that bug of being an entrepreneur. But much earlier, he dove into an exciting field in Web3 by reading anything he could get his hands on. He wanted more for himself and to provide for his family, where money would not be the issue, but where his opportunities would take him and this incredible product. Shieldfolio is a small handheld notebook made from crushed stone paper, 100% waterproof, and it includes an invisible ink marker for writing, which is sold separately. This product offers massive value to anyone who has a crypto wallet. Freddy also came up with an encryption method, which we'll talk about today, called Shieldcrypt. This prevents the ability for somebody to come in and take your information just quickly without realizing there's invisible ink marker. From the Stone Book, Ghost Pen, Shieldfolio story, Shieldcrypt, and his developing blog, we're going to dive into it. Early innovation is needed, and Freddy has the solutions. Welcome, my Web3 friend. How are you doing?
Craig, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. We got a treat at the end. We're going to have my good friend Ralph Quintero from the Daily Ralpha joining us to talk about all things Web3 related. But I want to get into it, right? This is the Shieldfolio book. It is an actual product. I actually hold one of these, and I now have a ghost pen as well. Today, as we know, we're going to be giving away 2 of them. You know, as you were reading and diving into Web3, trying to figure out, you know, your love for NFTs and crypto and the blockchain, how did this idea come about? Where did this start from?
So this started from my wife actually throwing away my private key, and I left it on a nightstand. It was on a torn piece of paper. Next couple of days, I went back to get it. It wasn't there. It was gone. I lost the crypto. So I was like, you know, I got to get organized. I got to find notebooks to get more organized. I have so many wallets. I degen so much at the time. So I had notebooks. They were deteriorating. I dropped coffee on them. They were just a mess. So I was like, I'm going to create a notebook for the space since there isn't any. And it has to be a notebook that covers all corners. And that's why I integrated the paper, you know, the ghost pen, the Shieldcrypt encryption to make sure if somebody does get their hands on the book, it's going to be difficult for them to find out what the private key or where it's at.
I love it. I love it. So how are you driving traffic? And we're going to do a quick screen share. For those that are listening in, you can always go back on YouTube. You can go back on actually YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook probably to see this video. But obviously, YouTube will have it in screen share so you can see his website. I highly recommend that you guys go and look at it. But how are you driving traffic to your Shieldfolio? And I'm just about to pull it up. There we go. So I got the screen share, Tony. Yep. So how are you driving traffic?
So what helps is word of mouth, me going to expos and presenting it. When I do that and I whip out the ghost pen, it's literally like an instant sell because no one's ever seen it before. It's something that is just it's changing the game of how to write down your private keys when they're, you know, not with a ballpoint pen. In that case, it's just if you want extra protection, the Ghostpen gives it to you. I do have affiliates on YouTube, on Instagram, on socials, so they help out too. They love the book, so they spread the word. Also, it's on Amazon. So we just got on Amazon last year, and this year we just got on Walmart. So that helps to spread and also to bring products to mainstream stores online.
I love it. I love it. And I have to say that the book is very durable. The Ghost Pen, I just played around with it the other day. My son and I were playing around, writing each other messages. How cool is that? And what I did in one of the videos is I said, if for some reason that book got in the wrong hands and someone was able to figure out with that UV light, that there are seed phrases on there, again, it gives people a buffer of time if ever that book got into the wrong hands. Is that something that you thought about as you were developing this idea?
You know what? There's different methods of how you could go about utilizing the stone book. Yeah. So many has not been discovered yet. So many ways. But there is this way that you can utilize it. And this is like a tamper-proof protection method. You actually get an alert by it. So as you see here, I'm going to demonstrate the book.
Perfect.
It has a seed phrase. But if someone were to find this book, obviously they punch in that seed phrase. And if they do that, they send a transaction out of the funds that are in it. You would get notified if, let's say, you would put a watch list on the wallet. You would get notified by email. So now you know somebody's got your book. But what the thief doesn't know, or the person that took your book, is that the real seed phrase is actually behind it. So as you can see there, it's just a way of protecting yourself. You go to a secondary device, a secondary notebook. In another location to retrieve the funds and send them out to a different wallet.
How smart and creative is that? I mean, that's the innovation that's needed, especially early on. I think this is absolutely incredible. You allow for free shipping in the US. You also get a 10% discount again today to 2 lucky people. We're going to be giving out these books, and I'm going to pick at random. Awesome. The 10% off is great. Free shipping is great. How much are these stone books for somebody who goes onto the website and purchases directly? And let's go back to that website so at least people can see the link. They can go in if they're tuning in. If they're not, it's shieldfolio.com/ or just shieldfolio.com. Simple. Go for it.
Yeah. The stone book right now is 45 USD, and the Ghost Pen sits at 15 USD.
Perfect. And now at some point, will somebody be able to purchase maybe one of these days with crypto?
Actually, we do accept crypto on the website.
Love it.
We accept Bitcoin Lightning, and also the cryptos like ApeCoin. Most, as you can see, I'm a big ape guy. So we accept that, Ethereum, Litecoin, pretty much a lot of crypto.
We're going to talk about your mutant ape. And I asked you a question offline the other day. Do you use any of the IP right now? And it's a very interesting time, which you, myself, and Ralph will maybe unpack a little bit more. But the intellectual property, and you said, no, not yet. There's no need to. But what I would say is indirectly, when I see you on Twitter and I see your mutant ape, I associate that with you. And of course, with your incredible product, Shieldfolio. It's been a busy week in NFTs, especially. Yuga Labs founders have the SEC knocking at the door. They were expecting this, right? And then Frank DeGods went to a 0% royalties, which is the biggest Solana project. I find that to be more of a positive on both. What are your thoughts?
Regarding the DeGods, I don't know too much about. I don't dive myself too much in Solana, but I know that's like the biggest project where most of the funds got siphoned into that project. It's great art. I like the art, but I've never dabbled too much on that blockchain. Not yet.
I get it. I think it's the overall arching idea of the 0% royalties. I mean, think about it. If we go to a suit store and we purchase a suit, and the company doesn't get royalties every week that you're dry cleaning it, right? You've got to go back and get that service. So I think for the NFT communities, maybe not all of them, and there are going to be people that don't agree. And by the way, if you don't agree, just tweet it in there, put the YouTube, tell me what your thoughts are. But my thought around it is, I see it as a good thing because you have to innovate. So when a project launches, any NFT project launches, they're making their money on the mint, but then they have to continuously provide value rather than the secondary sales catching them royalties. Now, with artist projects, and I'm looking to a few of them, I would say that maybe the royalties make sense there because it's based upon purely art, not utility. And there's the value like we see in any painting. I mean, you think about an artist when they first launch a canvas print, they're paid X, $10,000 was an example the other day. And then when it sells in each auction house, the artist isn't getting their money in perpetuity. There's no royalties for them. And their pieces are selling for millions of dollars. So it allows them maybe to sell their next piece for more, but the market is making money off their work. And so certain parts of this industry, one has to wonder. And so, with the SEC, right here, you have an actual viable product that for anybody who's listening in, they have a hot and cold wallet. Hopefully they have a cold, very important, but this is needed. And that Shieldcrypt, I want to talk about the encryption method. Tell me a little bit about that idea. I mean, you just gave an example of one where you say, hey, Craig, you see this book? Pull that book back up again, if you don't mind. You see all these seed phrases? Well, someone's going to think this is yours, and they're going to go and enter that in. They're not going to think enough to use the UV light. And if you have that UV light, show it up again. And as you can see, the real seed phrase is in there, but someone's not going to realize. They're going to see the book. They're not going to realize it has invisible ink. This is a very valuable product. So for anybody that might not have gotten or won today the Shieldfolio book, you know what? It's worth the $45 USD, and it's also worth the $15 for the Ghost Pen. Now, I didn't get the Ghost Pen. By the way, big shout out to Cade. We're going to talk about him shortly. But that to me is extreme value. And to be able to go to shieldfolio.com and get that, it makes the most sense. And I know we're going to talk about with Ralph ENSs. We're going to dive into that. I'm assuming you're big into ENSs.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about ENS domains and now subdomains? What's your opinion on that?
I think ENS domains is going to be, as we grow and they come out with this thing called the wrapper for subdomains, that's where the innovation is really going to unfold. That's where the use case and utility, I think, will come out. And then I have a project, I can talk about it later real quick, but just an example of how that works. Basically, you could use a subdomain to send someone to a different website, utilize that website to connect. It's just linking your business with different other websites where people could pay services, memberships. It could be for token gated service. I can get into it later, but it's big innovation right now.
And I think that's where the funnel is. We actually, big shout out to Peace Rabbit NFT. They sent me some merch. Big thanks out to the Daily Ralpha. He connected us, and we've had a lot of really great conversations. We did a Twitter space with them, and they were talking about token gating. So this week, we're actually going to do a dive with one of my business partners from CraigO's Crypto Corner. We're going to do a dive into token gating, understanding the value. But you just brought up something really important, the idea of wrapping, right? So you've got your domain, your primary domain, which is, for me, it's metastaterealtor.eth. And I bought that because obviously everybody should know I'm a realtor in Connecticut. So bring on the referrals. But more importantly, the subdomains are really important because you'll have sub businesses within that business. So if it's say a liquor business, and tell me if you agree on this, I've got wines and spirits subdomain. I've got a beer domain subdomain. Is that what you're saying? Is that it breaks down into different categories for purchasing and tracking?
Like in an accounting system. So you can have set up different wallets for different payments on things. In my case, it's a project called ETH Roses. I have the dozen rose emojis. So it's basically a dozen rose bouquet of emojis of red roses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have people register. They could come in and get a name, any name they want. The name is one of one. So if it's like a Mary.dozenroses.eth, they would mint the Mary name. And that's it. There's only one Mary that could ever have a dozen rose emoji.eth. And so it gets kind of like a little bit of entertainment use case, because then you get to send someone a bouquet of roses that only she has that name tied to the dozen rose emojis. You get to send them to their wallet. You could send it to an influencer. You could send it to the one person you love. It gets very entertaining in that aspect of utility.
I love it. So I know you have some alpha. There's no question about it. You're plugged in with a great product, Shieldfolio and the Ghost Pen. It's worth every value. If you have a hot or cold wallet, you need to get this. But spill the beans, my friend. I know you have some alpha. Bring it.
So the alpha right now, some of the alpha I think is don't try to fade the Bored Ape Yacht Club, especially the metaverse. I know they're going through this, that they're getting probed by the SEC, but in reality, it's a great project. I purchased, and most of the others purchased for the art, right? and then to get into a club and enjoy a good time, communicate with people that, that you pretty much vibe with. And so I never thought of it like I'm going to buy it and flip it. And as you could see, it is not, it's not a token. It's not an ERC20. It's an ERC 721. And right from the get-go, that's of one piece that's non-fungible. And it's just like art. So I mean, I don't know if art, gets probed by the SEC artworks that often, but that's the alpha on the Bored Ape. Another alpha would be subdomains. Get creative. If you're out there minting domains, I honestly find a name out there that could work with the subdomain.
Yep.
And that could be gold, because the subdomain wrapper hasn't came out yet. We haven't seen the innovation. Once it does, people are going to be like, wait, these names, I bought them for this, but the innovation is in the subdomain. That's where utility is coming from. I should be looking for those names. So kind of think about how you're going to utilize the name instead of just minting out just names that could be anything else. I feel the subdomain is very powerful.
And think about this, right? Those that have gotten all these domains, those that are focused in on the subdomains, I might get a subdomain that say Ralph needs. And he might be like, oh, can I buy that from you? So there's going to definitely be a market for that. And every time that I look, every morning I read my Daily Ralpha, and it'll show that usually ENSs are usually in the top 5. For the past couple of days, I think they've been a little outside that. And I'm going to be curious to chat with Ralph what his thoughts are, because ETH has played a little deflationary. I was reading about it, and we'll definitely dive into that. So tell me so we talked about your roses. That's your project, correct? That you're creating. So like the Mary.roses, the MaryRoses.eth.
Yes, that's just a fun project I'm creating in the subdomains. It's just I like the community seeing what this project's going to be about, so they could get ideas and they could build off it. Like there could be so many use cases in gifting and services. Yep. And I was talking to someone else the other day, and she has an email. Let's say you subscribe on email on Twitter, right? She has like an email list. She could token gate that email list instead of using a middleman that accrues the charges and the fees that she has to pay. You could go directly to selling the subdomains, and the subdomains you can have the users register every year like a membership. And so it would just be the user and you, and there's no fees in the middle except for the gas fee that the user is going to pay to get that membership. So that's where subdomains could come in and use the token gated service that they have. You could prove they own ownership.
I love that. And it's interesting, all these use cases, because not only when I read this or I hear about it, I then have to conceptualize that. So I'm connecting that piece of the puzzle, but I'm realizing how important and how valuable these subdomains are. I want to just throw out to you, right? A couple other things. Immutable ledger. We talked about that, and I said, what has you so excited about it? Tell me a little bit about that.
It's building a business or a brand utilizing an immutable ledger, which is a blockchain. In my preference, I choose Ethereum blockchain to build most of my projects on. But the fact that you could utilize that, bring Web2 companies and just literally deconstruct them and build them into a Web3 way, I feel that's going to be powerful in the future. That's where the innovation is going to run. It's not until we start seeing these projects start unfolding like DAOs, starting to build up as a community. That's very interesting for the near future. I see that in the next bull run, DAOs becoming more, as regulation comes in and starts being more clear, DAOs will start forming, and that'll be like the new way of corporations, except it be decentralized. By
the way, for those that are listening, because we want to get that conceptualizing, a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. It provides the governance for community to vote in on, say, for instance, they're collecting NFTs. That will, of course, hopefully accrued in value. And then they go to sell them. The community wins when those things are sold because they're plugged into that ethos. So I was just going to say that. By the way, what do I see here? I'm just looking. A shout out to Machine One from Don Paulo. Don Paulo, what's up, my friend? He's from the Pyramid Group. I'm actually going to be picking out some winners shortly. So we're gonna do that. And I also want to talk a little bit about. First, let's pick a winner. I'm going to pick one winner right now, and then when Ralph comes on in our conversation about all things Web3, and we're going to bring him on in a minute, we're going to then give away another Shieldfolio book and another Ghost Pen. So actually, because he's tuned in the whole time and he's been on every every Twitter Spaces and has been given support. Maddie's Metrics. He's going to be coming on next week in the evening, but I want to give one to him because I think he's deserved it. So, Maddie, this is coming to you, my friend. A ghost pen and a Shieldfolio book.
Awesome.
So that's one given away. One, congrats to him. He's super talented. I'd love for you guys to connect on Twitter. So Maddie, go subscribe to Shieldfolio. Share all his information out there. I want to see more people purchasing this incredible product, Shieldfolio and the Ghost Pen. Get both. Don't be a cheapskate like me on the first one. I did my order and I was just like, I'm not spending the extra $15. I wish I had, and I wish I had actually thought about Shieldcrypt. So we talked about Shieldcrypt. We talked about the Shieldfolio. We talked a little bit about your Mutant Ape. We talked about some of the projects that have you most excited about. We talked about these subdomains. So just kind of encapsulating that. Now I want to bring on my good friend, Ralph Quintero from the Daily Ralpha. Can we have him pop on here?
What is up, boys?
What's up?
What's up? Hey, Ralph.
In great convos. I'm loving all the conversations around ENS and the subdomain strategies. Love the Shieldfolio. Great concept. To be honest with you, I had never seen it, and I love the whole UV light aspect of it. Super creative. And I've come across people that have some like super creative ways of keeping their seed phrases. That's what you just demoed live was pretty solid.
Right. And not only is it a good product, but I also like founders who are humble, transparent, and bring and deliver a great product. And Shieldfolio, Freddy does that.
I would agree. I mean, we just met. Listening in as an observer throughout this conversation has been phenomenal. I love the fact that you're building in the space, that you're active. Love the Roses side project because like that's how we all win, right? Like experimentation. We're so early, and I know everybody says that, but we really are, right? Like if you look at the global population and the amount of wallets that there are, we're like nothing. We're a blip on the radar. So like it's all of this experimentation that's gonna like really help us level up and develop this industry into something that's amazing.
Ralph, for the fourth day in a row, OpenSea has failed to break $10 million sales mark. I'm not fudding. You know, I got my gifts. I'm not fudding. But what are your thoughts? What do you think surround that?
Look, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of what's happening in the markets, right? Today we had major U.S. economic indicators be announced this morning. The CPI numbers came in actually, slightly worse than what economists expected it to be. The markets, last I checked before hopping on here, were all a sea of red. ETH was down like 6% on the day. Like definitely not a good look. I'm curious to see how it's going to develop throughout the rest of the day. But I do think that that's a big part of it, right? Like we've been in this bear market now for several months. There was a lot of talk last week. Have we bottomed out? Are we there yet? I don't think so. I think that, over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're going to continue to see much of what we're seeing. Today's an interesting day in the NFT space because there's a lot of mints and stuff going on. But, here's a thought. You guys were talking about the SEC actions against Yuga. And I would agree with you, Freddie. I would not fade Yuga at all. As a matter of fact, two things that are interesting. One is, had it not been for the SEC announcement that they were investigating Yuga 2 days ago, the numbers that we saw in the market would have been horrible because that announcement actually drove enough fear to drive a significant amount of volume in the markets. It could have been worse. Like we could have been seeing a $6 million day, and that would not have been a good look. And I think that even carried into yesterday. So, if you're looking for a silver lining, that's one. The other one is, if any company at all is the one who I want taking on the SEC, it's Yuga, right? Because when the SEC goes after somebody, what they're trying to do is establish precedent. They're trying to establish case law. If they would have gone after any other project who's not as well funded, as connected, and has built a solid case about what it is, the ecosystem that they're building, you'd be screwed, right? Because then all of the precedent would be set on that. And, similar to what we saw with the Ripple case on the crypto side, having Yuga involved in this, they're going to reach into those deep pockets of all those hundreds of millions of dollars that they've raised. And they're going to put together probably the most crack team of attorneys and really take the SEC to task. In a good way. I don't mean that in a bad way, but ultimately, I think that's the best case scenario in terms of somebody representing us as consumers in this space.
Yeah, I mean, they were prepared. They knew this was coming, and why would it not either be them or maybe another? Again, they are the highest level alongside of CryptoPunks, which are on the same ecosystem as well as Meebits, right? That's under Yuga Labs. Am I correct on that?
It is. It is. Actually, I heard a stat yesterday, which blew me away a little bit. And I look at stats all day. You know that, that like the combination of all of the Yuga projects represent like 48% of the total NFT market cap, which is nuts, right? Like it gives you a little bit of insight as like, if the SEC is going to go after anybody, they're going to go after like the people who represent the biggest chunk of the business.
Exactly. So
That's true.
Here's the thought, right? Do you see ETH crypto maxis cost averaging in or holding tight? And the reason I say that, Ralph, is every morning, aside from the GM, sort of blurb right below it, I think it's right below it, it talks about the price yesterday, today, and a year ago of Ethereum. So when I look at that today, it's $1,243, approximately, give or take. And last year at the same time, it's $3,786. So when I think about that, either people are licking their wounds and cost averaging in, or they've already sold out and they really decided that, oh, the blockchain and Web3 is not for me. Don't worry. Whether you like it or not, it's coming to your phone. And at some point, you're going to be faced with it in payment mechanism one way or another. What are your thoughts around that?
So you brought up a great point, and it's about to look, the looks of this are going to be bad, right? Because starting tomorrow is when we saw the mini run. It was like a 2-week run where ETH went from 30, just under 3,800 to 4,800. So over the course of the next 2 weeks, when you look at that Daily Ralpha update in the morning and you look at the ETH price, that valley in between where we are today and where we were last year is massive. And it's going to be massive. And a lot of people are going to look at that and go, oh my God, this is so bad. But like, I'm cost averaging in, I'm buying ETH every day. I'm still buying NFT projects. Like I believe in the ecosystem. And I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of people. Like you're either a believer in the space and you're going to build and you're going to support and you're going to go the distance, or you're not, right? And it takes us back to the early internet days, right? Where people were fading the internet. In general, it's like, is email, like, why would anybody send an email? Like we get mail delivered to our house. So like that's where we are right now.
And by the way, if you guys can hear a horn in the background, it's at our studio. It's right outside. It's all good. We're still doing it. Brenda just said I think she said you're brilliant. And Cade, I said legends. Cade, I am glad to be in the same great company. I do want to talk about October, right? Yep. Being the worst month ever for crypto hacks. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars. Have we not gotten smarter on not connecting our wallets? What is this? What are these hacks due to?
So they're not all wallet exploits in terms of like somebody fat fingering a link or something like that. Like some of it is just like underlying structural issues at some of these exchanges. Honestly, like as a consumer, I would prefer the SEC going after some of these platforms, right? Or even some of their own members. Like I'm not going to get political, but like some of our, on both sides of the aisle, some of our lawmakers are some of the best traders in the world. I mean, why even be a lawmaker, right? We all know why they're lawmakers and why they're the best traders in the world.
There's some politicians, if you follow their husbands, boy.
I don't want to say any names.
That's steaming up. I'm not going to do it, Ralph. I'm not going to do it.
Pansy Pelosi? Pansy Pelosi?
Cutting off here. I'm just kidding.
No, but that's the thing, right? Like, look, we're going to continue to see this. And this is the kind of thing that's going to drive some level of centralization, some level of, laws being built around this and consumer protection, because you can't just live in the wild, wild west forever. It's still a very difficult experience to onboard somebody into this space. And Craig, you and I have talked about this. Like, that's what I love about Starbucks coming on board. And now we see that they're doing a partnership with Delta. And like the more kind of seamless way that we onboard consumers, the more we win. And guess what? The consumer isn't going to remember, like, how to set up this wallet, and you need a profile for this, and you need a different wallet for that. And why in the world do I need 18 wallets? Like, I carry one wallet in my pocket in real life. Like, why can't I have all of my assets, whether it's euros or dollars or Brazilian reais or pesos, like whatever? I want it all in one place.
I feel like that complexity right now, early on, because we're so still early on in some of these trends, like we're talking about subdomains. People, if you're listening in, let's dive in on subdomains. Tony, I want to do a quick screen share. And for those that are tuning in on Twitter Spaces, and after we'll hear on Spotify and Apple, you can always go back to my YouTube channel to find this great content. But I love the screen shares because it really shows what we're doing. So the screen share I will have right now, and we've had Ralph on in the past, and he'll be a guest that comes on in future episodes as well. Just became good friends, and I'm so grateful, Ralph, is you guys get to subscribe to the Daily Ralpha, and it's free newsletter. It is a free newsletter. I can't say it enough. And the amount of learning that I've done from it, the amount of confidence it's given me in doing my podcast with content creation, it's free, people. You will learn so much. I'm not telling when you go in there, go, oh, look, Ralph said this free mint. And don't worry, Ralph, we're going to talk about some of those projects. We can get out of this screen share, but guys, go to his website, dailyralpha.com, and go just simply subscribe. It is free. And I think last time you said you have about 55,000 people that tune into this newsletter. Is that number increased since a little bit?
It has. We're just under 60,000. It's growing every day. We get amazing feedback. I get feedback from experienced people in the space. I get feedback from people that are just coming into the space and learning. I had one of the best emails sent to me the other day, right? It puts things into perspective. I had a young lady reach out and said, she works for a big brand, loves it. She's learned a lot. She's sharing it with her team. They're learning about Web3. They're trying to figure out kind of what the future of Web3 looks like for them. And then she asked me a question that kind of left me floored a little bit. And she asked, what's the little E that you're putting behind every number in your newsletter? Like, little E, what is she talking about? And then I opened the newsletter. I'm like, oh, like Ethereum, the Ethereum symbol that I'm putting behind the numbers. But kind of going back to like the consumer experience, onboarding, being early, like, why would anybody know what the Ethereum symbol is if they're not in this space? And like, right, how do we make it so that like people can come in? So it's made me think about even like maybe some of like putting a little glossary of what it means or whatever, but it is interesting, right? You learn a lot every day.
I think having a glossary section for what you do is incredibly important. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have Maddie. Next week, we're going to have Matt on from Matt Swayze from Maddie's Metrics. And some of what you're doing has really inspired him for the creation of project reviews. And that's really going to be his most biggest focus from over at the Pyramid Group. Awesome. So again, we talked a little bit about that. I want to dive into some of the projects or communities. It's funny, people like, I'd say businesses. I mean, we had Drew Austin from Knights of Degen on, and he says, these communities, if they're really solidified, they're businesses. They're here to make money, and they will make their community money if the community supports and the peer-to-peer rallies behind it. Rotten Antisocial Club. Now, I want to do a quick screen share. I want to talk a little bit about this project. Maybe there's nothing new to share, nothing maybe that you know, but I love this zero garbage. And I'm okay with it if we don't have anything to share on it. But I want to talk a little bit about a tab that I found on Twitter, and I want to bring people into it. And this is why. So if you can queue up into that screen share, thank you so much. So in here, there's this community tab. Ralph, I'm not sure if you're aware of it. Before I came on, I was like, maybe if we don't have anything in the way to share, I want to talk about this community tab. Are you aware of that tab, by the way, my friend?
I am. There are several projects that are using that tab right now where you can come in and interact in a more meaningful way with the community and just understand like who's behind the project, what are they doing. There's a lot of really exciting things that you can glean from that. And when you start seeing kind of like who some of the biggest holders are, the most powerful community members, it really starts to kind of lay out a kind of different view of the background of the project and make you value it in a different way.
The one thing that I love about the Rotten Antisocial Club, and I do hope you guys go to zero because you're complete trash. And I say that with love.
I hope everybody is listening to that.
Yeah.
Everything needs to go to zero.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a roadmap, and if you can read very carefully in that, you'll pick up on understanding it. And again, this is not financial advice. And I used to say, Ralph, consult with your financial advisor, Freddie. I used to say that, but I realized if a financial advisor is in Web3, they're not going to admit it. Talk to your accountant. Don't talk to me. I'm not your guy. But this reminds of the early days of NFTs. And I know you said this to me. These are your words. Why does this remind you of the early days of NFTs? And why is that so special to you from an intrinsic standpoint, not a financial standpoint?
Look, this community made zero promises out of the gate. Actually, they made an anti-promise. They wanted the project to go to zero, right? So like if you think back to the very, very early days of this space as communities started coming together, there were no roadmaps. Like we didn't start this space with roadmaps. Roadmaps came about a few months after kind of like the NFT craze started rolling out, right? Like there was zero expectation back in those days. Everybody was just learning. Everybody was having a good time. It was a great place to come into Discords or spaces, or actually there weren't spaces at the time. It was clubhouse rooms, where you could come in and shoot the shit about projects and have fun and people encouraging people and a lot of creativity around like memes and meme culture and like, fan made art. That's what this project to me has been all about. Honestly, like there's speculation that there's a high end or like some, top notch artist behind it. Who knows? If it is great, if it isn't great, like I think the community has rallied around this despite the art or what it is. It's really kind of this mission of, look, we've all been rugged. Were you on the very first Twitter space that they did? And like one of the things that they talked about, even before Mint, when they were giving away like allow list spots, they had like a whole Twitter space on everybody sharing their first rug experience. It's like sharing your first date. Awesome. Because it was like, oh my God, yeah, look, Freddie had this experience and Craig had that experience and I had this experience. And it was just awesome for the community to come together. And then when people were done sharing, it was like, oh man, I'm so sorry to hear that. I had that too. Same project. No way. Whatever happened to the founders of that project? So it's been phenomenal since day one, really.
No, I love it. And just for a second, I had popped offline. Now I'm back on. No, I think that's really important. And I loved how they did the planting of a tree. So for every NFT that you purchased in their collection, they would plant one tree. And I believe they planted either 200 or 300 trees. So for me, that's the value in what you call a floor sweep. Don't floor sweep just to keep a floor up and keep the community excited and then inflate your NFT's value for really no reason at all. We're seeing that play happen with other NFT communities that are getting some rise right now or some recognition in this bear market. I do want to talk about another project, and I interacted and engaged with them. Another great project through the Daily Ralpha. A big shout out to you, Ralph, on this. Mini Heroes, if we can do that screen share, Tony, can we bring him in on that? So Mini Heroes was really cool. It's hard to say what projects are going to do well or, what you're looking at long term. You got 43% unique owners. Which is good. 5% or less of items that are listed, but their theme play in this particular project of Mini Heroes is about being a hero to somebody. So I think they're going to help from the self-help, community rally. And I feel it's something special when I get into a community, any community that's fully engaged. What are your thoughts on Mini Heroes since you had mentioned them in the Daily Ralpha?
Look, I love the aspect of being socially responsible and helping people through all kinds of things. And we all know that, mental health is a crucial part of kind of what we all have to deal with in this space, because it's a space that never sleeps and it moves a million miles an hour, right? So you could be in a situation where, like you could be hanging by a thread. So communities that come together like Mini Heroes where they're helping out in that sense are really powerful. And the fact that they're trying to help onboard people into the space is also powerful. It's a real community. That's how they ended up being listed on the Daily Ralpha. It's a little bit disheartening to see where it's sitting in terms of the value of the project. But it's got good distribution in terms of ownership. Less than 5% listed is always a good thing. And look, I'll bring up another great community where we saw it like linger at a really low floor price and it has since taken off. I would say exclusively because of the power of the community is Genuine and Undead, right? Like that project came down to below 0.01 And as of late, we've seen it like rise close to 0.5, right? Like talk about a meteoric rise on a project, but it's really 100% because of their community.
Do you think that the psychology in that happening is when you see, this rise, are people going, oh, I need liquidity, grab? Or do you think people go, you know what? I'm okay. It's going to come back down. It's going to come back up. That's at least my diamond hands, mindset, right? Diamond minds, diamond hands mindset is the idea that when I'm getting into a community like On-Chain Monkey, or any of these other projects where I mint in, there's a ton of great free mints that you've done, and you do a lot of due diligence, and some will fail to take off. You make no promises, and you also give good advice. Guys, get yourself to a wallet that can't get drained. Get yourself to a wallet that is your sort of minting wallet, and then bring it over either to your hot wallet that you're not always connecting every day to sites unknown if it's not connecting to OpenSea, and then have your cold wallet. And you talk a little bit about protocol. Maybe I want to see more advice from you because I think you're the advice expert around that. The idea of people being very smart. I want to talk about just two more communities. One is Project CraigO. I've been talking to Bubble NFT in the DM, and we've given him many different shout outs. But Michael Chastain, who is the founder of Project CraigO and Bubble NFT, you guys can follow him. He is the community manager, liaison. He's the person making all of these great connections. They did 239 ETH in traded volume. But what I thought was really interesting, and if we can pull up to that screen share, and again, anybody who is on Twitter Spaces, you can always tune in after and go right back into the YouTube. But you can see that they had a really nice rise or a nice pop. And what I could see before I looked on this graph chart, and we can take us out of there, Tony. One of the things that I did is I went back into Twitter, and the other day Twitter was lighting up with excitement from that community. And that to me was like one key indicator, and then the last project, and a big shout out to Bubble NFT. I see you, buddy. The last project I do want to talk about is Lo-Fi Lofts. Now, there were a number of projects that I purchased secondary based on some of your suggestions. There were some projects that, very few, by the way, you've had a lot of really great picks. I want to say that Daily Ralpha has had a number of really great picks. You can't guarantee what's going to happen once it launches. You can only hope for the best. Everybody brings that enthusiasm before you're going to put them on this newsletter that now is going out to over 60,000 people. OMG, LFG, let's go. So Lo-Fi Lofts, this has been a project that we've been talking about for months. It was an early project find. Luckily enough, I had set that little tab marker, and I actually want to go into the screen share because I want to show people, and I'm actually going to pull it up on Twitter, so bear with me for just a second, everyone. I apologize. There we go. Let me pull that up. All righty. Lo-Fi Lofts. I'm just pulling it up right now. Thanks, everyone, for being so patient. But this little key metric right here, and if you can do the screen share, thanks, Tony. Right here, this little key indicator right here, it says turn on or off notifications. I was blowing up on that. So actually, you can take us out of screen share now, Tony. That's perfect. I just wanted people to see that's another little functionality in Twitter that people can use. So what has you so excited about Lo-Fi Lofts, and why was it an early project mentioned for you at the Daily Ralpha?
So a couple things, right? I came across this project several months ago, and I loved the art, right? I saw it and I was like, man, that is so creative. How, like, they've created kind of these living spaces in a whimsical way, in a very Web3 metaversey way, where like there is no law of gravity, there is no like boundaries. So for me, that was immediately came through my eyes, and I was like, man, this is awesome. And then I started spending time on their Twitter page and in their communities. And I was like, look, this is actually really interesting. Then there was a token play, and it like, from a business perspective and from a vision perspective, they were doing a really good job at piecing together all of these things. Then the bear market hit, and they had kind of like a false start, right? Like they had to pause their mint, reschedule some stuff. And it was just a weird vibe. And unfortunately, because like more than 80% of the people in this space, we are all still speculators,
right?
Right. People are looking for the quick flip. And when they saw that the project sputtered, they're like, oh, this is never going to go anywhere. So it was a pretty big uphill battle, I think, for the team at Lo-Fi Lofts. And like I said, it's a beautiful project. Like, you compare this to some of the projects that we've all gotten into, where like all of a sudden you see them like go north of 1 ETH, 2 ETH, 3 ETH, and with no roadmap, with nothing for a community, with no utility. And then you compare it to a project like this, and you're like, how in the world? Right. But I think that just continues to speak to like the time period that we are in this space. And we are going to see projects like Lo-Fi Lofts win long term.
Yeah.
I think that they have to work on their strategy in terms of like, how else can they continue to fund the project and monetize it? Right. Because when you don't mint out, right, like they've done what, 250-ish ETH of volume.
I'm pulling it up right now, my friend. As you're talking, they've done 252 ETH in volume. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, I think in order to continue to grow and in order to continue to feed some of these initiatives that they have, they're obviously going to have to continue to raise. It's like no different than any other business. And this doesn't just go for Lo-Fi. This goes for any NFT project. So like, what is the business case going forward? How does that look? And how does that integrate the community as part of it? But I'm long on these guys. I think that it's a good buy. Especially from a floor play. Like, how do you not spend 0.013 on this?
It's tokens, right? So I always say these are tokens in your pockets. These are long-term plays. These are communities that are engaged. And I feel that you and I know Freddie would agree with us, it's always about the peer-to-peer engagement. How are you celebrating others in the Web3 space, like you two gentlemen? I think that's incredibly valuable. And I think if people can really plug in and start to understand the nuances of Web3, understanding how to move about things in wallet. Because I think I was always caught up on the process of things. Now that that's become easier, I don't take it for granted. I want to share that with others. I want people to understand that this learning process can be an enjoyable one. If you like this space, if you don't, I get it. And if you've lost your shirt, come back over time. We speak of the art, and I know that was one. And last project, I had it on the list, and I had to talk about it. And I like the art is Dart Bots. That was mentioned on your thing. It's a cool project. There's no utility because it's an artist. It's a graffiti artist. But a big shout out. I really liked what it looked like, and I purchased it because it was visually pleasing.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
Same here, right? Like, not everything that you purchase has to be done from a pure investment play. I think that kind of thinking has gotten us into some of the trouble that we're in right now, because there were all these giant projects that set unrealistic expectations for like 100 ETH floors. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in real life, like with real brands. Like, not every brand is a multi-billion-dollar brand.
Right.
And that's okay, right? Like, there's a ton of awesome niche brands that like appeal to people and speak to people on so many different levels.
Yep.
And they don't have to be $1 billion brand, right? Lo-Fi Lofts today, $16. Like, how do you not spend $16 to buy this? Like, by the way, this is not financial advice, but if I was onboarding somebody today into this space and they said, what can I buy? Like, seriously, for under $20, you get into a project that has good fundamentals. You didn't mention these guys, but I know that they've been huge supporters, and they have probably one of the strongest communities that I've seen as of late is the team at ENS Maxis. They showed a lot of love for CraigO's corner yesterday. And they're huge supporters of the Ralpha. And I do a show with some of those guys on the ENS side, ENS Shark Tank.
We have that on the list, by the way, my friend. Oh, we're not done here yet.
Yeah, awesome.
No.
Beautiful.
ENS.
Then I jumped the gun. You said last project. I was like, I got to talk about these guys.
No, you're right. You're right. I did say that, but it's actually down in the notes. Awesome. I also want to give two notable shout outs. Last week, we had Cade from the Joy H Kingdom. He's another incredible podcaster, one that you two gentlemen should connect with. He has a unique voice in Web3. His podcast is really cool. So I love connecting early on. I don't look at people as competition. I look at people as bringing value to my set, and I bring hopefully value to theirs with my perspective. The other one is NFT God. He's going to be coming on to the podcast, I believe around the 17th of November. So really excited to have him on. He's got
very much looking forward to that.
Me too. Just like every time you come on to the podcast. So All right, let's get to some other things, and then yes, we are going to touch upon our ENS Maxi family. We don't want to forget them. We love them. Google partnerships with Coinbase to accept crypto for payments. What are your thoughts on this, Ralph? And then I also want to hear what Freddy's thought is on this.
It was coming, right? So like they have been very vocal about not supporting advertising for crypto or NFTs on any of their platforms. They say that they're being super selective. I think that they're being quite unfair in how it's been put together. But it was inevitable, right? Like the world is moving towards Web3 and crypto and decentralized finance. And if they're going to continue to generate revenue from an advertising perspective, they're going to want to play the game. And the best way to play the game is to control the game, at least early on. And I think that's what they're doing with this play, but it doesn't surprise me.
Okay. $570 million worth of BNB stolen by the hacker. I know we talked about some of these hacks. I just want to touch upon it one more time. And before I do that, right, I wanted to at least pose that same question in the way of partnerships for Google and Coinbase. Freddie, what are your thoughts on that real quick?
I think it's a big deal in this space because now Google's they're recognizing that Ethereum is not only Ethereum but other cryptos as well. It's getting more mainstream, and so this is going to be good because now you're going to have companies to see this and they're going to be like, wow, if this big hitter is doing this, we should follow suit, and it's good for the whole crypto industry in my opinion.
I would agree, Freddie.
All right, so Ralph. $570 million worth of BNB sold by a hacker. I know we talked a little bit about it. I just want to touch upon it one more time. Does this lead to uncertainty or a push forward as losses are expected in this space? And as you noted, it's not always by user error. It's usually on some of these centralized platforms. And that's why I just wanted to hit upon this point again. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both, right? Like there's always that fear factor. Every time I come across one of these, news bites and it's like, oh, somebody's ape got stolen or somebody just lost $100 million worth of BNB or whatever it is, it makes me pause, right? Like it always serves as a reminder to slow down. Like when I started in this space, and I have two young men as sons. But we always kind of the advice we always had around the house, and I've always shared in this space is slow down. Like you don't have to be moving a million miles an hour. And most what I call fat finger mistakes happen when you're moving too fast and not paying attention. And our favorite saying around here is when in doubt, type it out. And that is advice that has served me well. I do not click on anything. I look at it and I type it out myself just to make sure that I'm going exactly where I want to go, especially if I'm looking at either something that's super shady or I'm about to do some kind of transaction that's like super high profile. So when in doubt, type it out, slow down. The space isn't going anywhere. And it's okay, so you may miss out on a mint, whatever, pick it up on the secondary.
And I think that's a really important thing that you mentioned because in your Daily Ralpha, guys, here's the thing. You're going to mint onto something. You always put that thing at the bottom. Don't do this. Do this. It's very clear. More ETH was burned, verifying transactions than was created, right? What are your thoughts on ETH becoming deflationary asset for the first time since the merge? What are your thoughts around that, Ralph?
I think it's a good thing for the space. It was a little bit of an outlier though, right? So that's kind of almost a clickbaity headline, not from you, like from the space, right? Because it was all driven by one single token called the Zen token, XEN. I do not have any information on it that I could speak even remotely close to intelligently about, but that's what drove it, right? So it was $2 million worth of gas fees in one day for this one token, which the one thing I can say is that this morning it was down like 46% from earlier this week. I don't know. I don't know that we could say that it's truly deflationary. It is because it was driven by that. And I think we're going to continue to see it be deflationary. And I think it's good for the space. It's going to continue to kind of raise all ships.
I love it. I love it. So one of the things that I do want to talk about, and I actually read their white paper from front to back. And by the way, Shieldfolio, guys, go get one of these stone books. Go order it. Shieldfolio.com. I feel like a little bit of a commercial, but you know what? Whoever's tuning in right now, this is the safest place, the best place to keep your keys offline. Don't put them in your Google Drive. Cryptoys.com. Now, don't worry. We're getting to the ENS. So ENS Maxis, I'm going to show you love. I promise.
We got 5 minutes to talk about ENS and cryptoys.
No. We're going past a little bit. I'm sorry. This is Ralph. When we have you on, there's just too much unless everybody's time is tight. I understand. So Cryptoys, I went through, and actually, Tony, if you can do a quick screen share. Okay. What I want to share with people before I have you talk about it, Ralph, I was so impressed. All right, forget the art, right, which is top level and the level of talent and skill set. But there's a metric right now, and Freddie, you're going to appreciate this. Kate, if you're listening in, Don, if you're listening in, spelling errors. So the other day, a project sent me their white paper. And listen, I'm not an English teacher. I've been in English classes before. I understand spelling. If I'm going to text you, GM's cool, LFG cool, right? But if I'm going to text you something and it's something really important, or I'm going to email you, more importantly, something that's really important, where I'm going to propose a business idea to you, Ralph or Freddie, I'm going to make sure there's no spelling errors. I'm going to make sure that the punctuation is right on part. And guess what? I'm not your number one guy with that. If I'm sending out something proposal, I have someone who's a professor. I'm going to make sure it's looked over. I don't want to look stupid. That's the new metric. Get your stuff done right. So this project sent it to me, and I was just hyped. Anyway, so big shout out to Cryptoys. I want to hear what you have to say on it, Ralph, but I really like how professional the site is laid out. And guess what? I didn't find any spelling errors. So I'm going back. If I find any spelling errors, I'm going to let them know.
Look, I think you're going to be hard pressed to find errors. Like we talk about big players coming into this space, right? The team behind Cryptoys is a Miami company called On-Chain Studios. The CEO of On-Chain is Will Weinraub. He's had several successful exits in prior businesses. Very much a Web3 visionary. I had the pleasure of speaking with him, or together with him, on stage a couple of weeks ago. And I had the opportunity to introduce him. And I actually introduced him as the Walt Disney of Web3. And I wholeheartedly believe that. He's reimagining the way that kids are going to play in Web3, right? Like we've seen over the course of several years since the advent of the iPad, how kids are just stuck to devices. And, good, bad, or indifferent, like it's just changed the way that society is. Like, there's been some good from it. There's been some bad from it. But the one thing is that the way that we all used to play when we were growing up is very different. And what Will is doing is reimagining that for kind of the future in Web3. And I think that it's phenomenal. There's a lot of kind of nostalgia built into the project of like how you unwrap and reveal your toys, and like you'd go to the toy store and you'd have like this blister pack, and how you open the blister pack and how you collect it. It's all like built around that. The other thing is that in very similar vein to the way that Starbucks is doing it, they're not talking about NFTs. They're not talking about like having this wallet set up, right? Like they don't have wallets. They have backpacks. Like everybody knows what a backpack is. You can earn patches, and you could like it's very much geared towards a whimsical kind of experience. You can onboard using a credit card if you want. You can onboard if you want, using crypto if you want. It's built on the Flow blockchain, so it's on the same stuff that Dapper's built all of their stuff. So they're one of their biggest investors is Dapper. They've raised I want to say just under $40 million so far. So 50 some odd employees, which is incredible, including like AI specialists. Like you can imagine these toys now interacting with kids as they play with them and learning kind of play styles. It's like the roadmap is solid. The business is solid. But then just this morning, they announced their first official kind of partnership launch, which is with Motu, with Mattel, Masters of the Universe. If you guys remember He-Man and She-Ra and that whole ecosystem. So November 9th, they'll be dropping that collection. So today's collection is only available to the original kind of OG Cryptoys holders.
At 3:00, right?
Yeah, 3:00 today. And it's their characters that they've developed. They've developed 4 awesome characters with great names and great personalities. And the Motu collection, the Masters of the Universe collection, I got to see the art this morning. I was blown away, super excited. I was a He-Man fan, so looking forward to that. And then, they've announced other partnerships, if you've been paying close attention to them on Twitter, with Mattel, to do stuff with Barbie and some of the most iconic brands that Mattel has. So I think this project is a game changer in the same way that Top Shot was, where Top Shot kind of kicked off the NFT run. I said this to Will the other day, and he's like, "Man, you're putting so much pressure on my shoulders." I said, "Well, look, you could be the Top Shot of toys, right? And be solely responsible for kicking off just before the holidays this next big run." So I'm a huge fan. I encourage everybody to at least check it out. You can, even if you don't buy or you can't get into the mint, just setting up your account and going through the experience. They have a lot of fun built into just the onboarding process. So super bullish on them.
At some point, I hope that we'll have Will on the podcast to do a deep dive into crypto toys. I think it's very valuable. Two things that pointed out to me. One is the correct layout, and my biggest metric of the day. Just check it how it's written. Have somebody look it over, because if it's not written well, I don't need to look at anything else. Remember when I think I might have asked you, what if everything else was a yes, but this one thing was a no? And I think you might have said, or it was one of the podcasts, where if it's overpriced, I'm not getting in, right? So my biggest metric is less of it being overpriced, but how is it written? What's the story? The storyline is great. He's a visionary. And it reminds me, and not comparing it to directly, but it felt a little bit like Vivi, and that's a compliment. It felt a little bit like it. I'm not saying exactly it, but when you go on, check out the website, and I like that, because that to me is their visionaries, as I can see Crypt Toys is. All right, I am bullish on ENS domains and subdomains, but I want to give first a little love, because on Twitter yesterday, my tweet lit up through all the ENS maxis, which was the first PFP. It was a free mint. I got on secondary, and I'll probably grab more over the coming months, because again, I love this bear market for just that. It gives us time to reevaluate, see what we like, and educate ourselves. Talk to me first about the ENS PFP maxi.
So interesting project. They came around after I had already been heavily investing in ENS names. ENS names for me, ENS domains are my single largest NFT holdings at this point. In terms of quantity, I'm super bullish on the entire ecosystem. Like you, Freddie, I start thinking about how you can expand, how you can build, how you can, get very creative around these names. So I've been buying ENS names every single day. I hold low digit counts. I hold single word dictionary words, verbs, nouns, like all different kinds of things. And I buy all the way across. And this community came on my radar as we were all like learning more about ENS and what was going on. And it was ENS maxis. And there was a lot of mystery. There still is a lot of mystery around, who started it, where it came about, what it's about. But similar to Rask, to Rod and Antisocial Club, it is a super tight community, a lot of fun. Some of the best friends I've made in this space I've made over the last couple months since ENS maxis came on the radar, and everybody kind of coming together around that central ethos of wanting to learn more about ENS names. And that's how I met all these guys who I co-host the ENS Shark Tank with. We've participated in teams, like we built teams. They had this awesome like scavenger hunt that was part scavenger hunt, part like mystery like thing. And our team, and big shout out to my team on that one. We actually ended up winning that, kind of banded together, and it was a tremendous amount of fun. But that community is super active. They run some of the longest Twitter spaces I've seen. They're on every single day, and they're out evangelizing ENS and why it's important, and the kind of the power of an ENS maxi as your PFP, right? Like I can see ENS maxis being a forever PFP, especially like if you own let's say that you own whatever ENS number 6215, you may also own ENS maxi 6215, and you start to really align kind of your personal brand around all of this stuff. But just from a community perspective, even if you just bought a single one and never did anything with it, but being a part of that community has been life-changing.
Oh, by the way, I love their Twitter Spaces. Big shout out to them. They're always talking about multiple parts of information. It's not just stuck directly on ENS, but they're talking about strategy around it. But they're also talking about other communities, and it is a very tight-knit group over there. So a huge shout out. I do want to finish up on a couple quick things. One is if we can go to a quick screen share for anybody that's tuning in. I do have a linktree, linktree.ee/CraigO Crypto. Please feel free to go on there. We've got our GIFs up. We're now on Spotify and Apple Music. Some of our latest conversations as well in there. Crypto Rain, Cade. We also did the traveling blog. We're going to do that hopefully next year. And then as well as our special guest today, Shieldfolio. Guys, it's a great product and it's a viable one. And if you're in Web3, please go pick up one. It's worth the money. I'm very sure of that. You don't need to consult with your accountant on it, or maybe you do. And then for the Daily Ralpha, just simply go. You can have that screen share up there. Just real quick, Tony. Just simply put in your email address. It has such valuable information. I've learned so much from both of you gentlemen. Ralph, it's been amazing having you back on today. Freddie, it's been amazing chatting with you about what you're doing, how you're seeing the space, and how you guys are connecting. And on the last thing, we got to pick out one more winner. Freddie, I'd like you to actually grab an extra one and give one more out. And I'm just making the recommendation. I'd love you to give one to Ralph. So
will do.
Wow, thank you.
He's gonna love it.
And I can't wait.
So he's gonna send you that link, and it's a very easy ordering process. So you guys will connect on Twitter or connect directly through me. And then the last one I want to give out to is a young man who is crushing it in Web3. I want to give this to Cade from the Joy Kingdom podcast. He's got just such great information on there. Let's show love to our Web3 community. Let's build this together. And everybody, thanks for tuning in to another great CraigO Crypto Corner episode.
I love it. Thank you, boys.
All right, got it. See you. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.